the next big story on the program, and again a story which needs your attention. I'll keep reiterating this on a daily basis. The tears flowing down the cheeks of a film star, the private WhatsApp messages of a dead film star, two people perhaps who become more famous in their life, one after his unfortunate death and one about whom we never knew. You can either tali bajao looking at all the tamasha which is unfolding around yourself, or you can ask yourself, meri jeb mein ho kya raha hai? What is the government doing? Do I know what the government is doing? Do I know what the political class is doing? This is what's happening on the political economy front. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who had described a shortfall in the revenue as an act of God, today is literally being pushed into a corner to explain exactly what's happened. What is the benefit which has been achieved at the end of the day when you look at the lockdown? If at the end of the lockdown, you have a scenario where there is a deficit of 2.35 lakh crores of the GST, exactly what's the road ahead then for the government? We've had a 20 lakh crore package which was announced by the finance minister a few weeks back. We had the Supreme Court asking the government exactly what is it, what is the roadmap that you worked out, and we really have no answer. So tonight, I want to know some of those answers, because those questions are not being asked by anybody. I will ask those questions. Let's just hear Nirmala Sitharaman, the finance minister. Let's just hear her exactly what her defense is.
Act didn't foresee an act of God. It just kept saying protected revenue should be taken care of. And it also said approximately a 10% growth, what is the actual revenue. And therefore it made sure that it hardwired giving compensation. Whereas this year we are facing an extraordinary situation that even below the 10% approximate estimation, you're facing an act of God which might even result in a contraction of the economy. To what percent or whatever, I'm not getting into that.
अब पिछले 3 साल में, आज चौथा साल है जीएसटी के इम्प्लीमेंटेशन को, पिछले 3 साल में ना तो देश में महंगाई कम हुई, ना ही राज्यों का रेवेन्यू बढ़ा, केंद्र सरकार का भी नहीं बढ़ा. तो जीएसटी महंगाई रोकने के मोर्चे पे भी फेल हुआ, जो कि एक सपना दिखाया गया था. राज्यों को कहा गया था और ये कहा गया था राज्यों के रेवेन्यू बढ़ेंगे तो सरकारें और डेवलपमेंट की काम कर पाएंगी. ना राज्य का ना केंद्र सरकार का रेवेन्यू बढ़ा. आज जबकि सारी राज्य सरकारें रेवेन्यू के शॉर्टफॉल से जूझ रही हैं, कमी से जूझ रही हैं, तो जीएसटी ने, केंद्र सरकार ने जीएसटी कंपनसेशन देने पे हाथ खड़े कर दिए हैं.
Okay, let's welcome our guests and let's figure out exactly what is going on the economy front. Professor Aman Agarwal is Rector in Indian Institute of Finance. Dr. Ajay Dua is former Secretary, Minister of Industry and Commerce. Dr. Dua, a GST shortfall of 2.35 lakh crore rupees. How do I look at this? Professor Agarwal, how do I look at this deficit of 2.35 lakh crore rupees in the GST collections?
If I
think we don't have your audio, sir. We don't have your audio. We'll try and reconnect. We'll try and reconnect the audio in a moment. Is Dr. Dua there? Is Dr. Ajay Dua there? Right. We'll try and connect. We'll try and connect with him in a moment from now. The simple point is this. The simple point, and I think Professor Aman Agarwal is back, that we need to know that if this is the shortfall, and if the GST Council, government is saying hardly any collection in the month of April and May, exactly how are we going to beat these blues? Because so far we've only been told about rebooting India. How is India going to be rebooted? I want to know, is there money? Is there money in the system? Professor Agarwal, how does it play out?
Yes, first of all, you were very rightly pointed out. First of all, these are projections which are there. We do not have the exact figures. Secondly, these are projections in terms of the government makes an expenditure based on an expected revenue which is expected to come forth. Now, the expenditure is already accounted for. It's an expenditure which they know very well. Income is not known. and that's where the deficit comes into play. Now, because of the COVID and the lockdowns and the structures which you have seen in the last couple of months, apart from the fact that there has been a sluggishness globally for the last couple of months, we have seen that fall taking place, and that's where this revenue deficit has taken place. But this is not actual, because the states also have avenues of earning, and that is not as of now reported. This is only the ones which are collected in the GST front, which part of it is given to the state, and this is what they are looking at. There are a large number of others revenues which the states have, which is not accounted for here, and the states have not reported the figures as well as yet. Like the one which is collected on petrol, the one which is collected on alcohol, as of today accounts for anywhere between 70 to 80% of the total state's revenue, and that's a huge chunk of money which the states get, and that's why they have not wanted to come into the GST, despite the nomenclature of GST Act where they wanted to have it introduced within a year. The states have not let it forgone, and that's where the income is also coming to them. But again, that has not been taken into account. But based on what the GST was and what the allocations were there, this is where the deficit is coming. Now, when you raise the issue about how do you go about bringing this money into the system, how do you have this revenue take place? Now, the RBI, the Ministry of Minister of Finance, Nirmala Sitharamanji, has told one way is to go about raising debt, and the debt could be either through the ministry, the central government, the federal government structure, or it could be through directly to approaching through the RBI, and that's one of the two suggestions which has come up. Apart from this, there are other means of raising revenue for the government. One of them is also disinvestment, which is there both of state as well as central assets, which the central government has already started doing with which we saw in the budget of LIC, then we saw the BHEL. There is a disinvestment plan which is going on. The second is which the states can also do. They have state assets as well. The third is they have large mass land banks which are there with both the states and the center, which can be actually leased out for a certain period in terms of developing frameworks, structures, which could be given
you're saying
on,
the
that could
situation is not
immediately
as
pump in
bad.
money. So
The
there are large
situation
number of
you're
ways of
saying,
doing
Professor
it,
Agarwal, is
apart
not as
from
bad as it
monetizing.
may come across. But I want to go to Supriya Srinate. I want to go to Supriya for a moment on this one. She's a spokesperson of the Congress party. Supriya, the figure, when I look at the figure of 2.35 lakh crore deficit in GST collections, it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder just how bad the situation would be. What's the Congress party's assessment, Supriya?
Look, very frankly, Bhupen, I'm sorry I was caught in an emergency and so I've had to do this while I'm mobile. But very frankly, if the government has decided that, the council has decided that states will be compensated for losses, you cannot now turn around and expect them to, to go ahead and borrow from the markets. I mean, the government of India has collected some GST revenue. You have done it on behalf of the states. And now when you deny to share compensation with them, you are almost sequestering that money that you have collected on behalf of the states for yourself. I think that is wrong. And I think states are hugely crunched for funds because there is a new development that has come. COVID is that development. The government of India has more borrowing avenues than anybody else has. And the government of India needs to put that to use. So expecting states to now take the lion's share of the debt burden is not just unethical, but I think it is also illegal because the GST Constitution provides for compensation, and it is the duty of government of India to compensate these states because states are at a stage where they need more funds.
Okay, so just hold on, and I know you're in a car, but if you could just be with us for like 10 minutes because I want to settle this crucial question. Gopal Krishna Agarwal is with us as well, spokesperson of the BJP. Gopalji, look at what Supriya is saying. And I'm looking at statements which have been made. Sushil Modi, Deputy Chief Minister of Bihar, closely associated with the GST Council, has always maintained it's a moral obligation of the central government to compensate the states. Mamata Banerjee is saying our government is yet to get 53,000 crore rupees from the Modi government. Exactly, where is the money? I just want to know where is the money. If the states are saying we don't have the money, the center is saying 2.35 lakh crore deficit in GST collection, then where is the money, sir?
Mr. Chaubey, there are 2-3 things we should be very clear. GST is a complex issue and we should understand and not jump to the political side of the discussion. First, we should settle the economic aspect and the financial aspect of it. Then we can talk about the politics of it. One thing is that anybody who is paying GST, he pays in 3 categories. One is center GST, one is state GST, and another is the interstate GST. The state GST goes to the state directly, and IGST is bifurcated by the center and given to the state. So that is being done regularly. The issue is that this GST collection has fallen down to a last drastic level, but then whatever is due to the state, that is going to them. The second important thing that is now being discussed, and where is the problem, is that when the GST Council was set up and the federal structure was set up, in that the center had said, that GST Council had said that any loss of revenue to the state over the next 5 years will be compensated by an increase every 14% every year by the center through cess collection. It is important that it will be compensated 14% additional revenue loss every year. That will be compensated by the center from the cess collection. So
but that is what I'm trying to understand. If the center itself is saying, Gopalji, that's the argument. That's the argument. You're right. Gopalji, that's the argument. If the center itself is now contending that we don't have the money because our collections are reducing, then how is the center going to honor these commitments that you're talking about?
So therefore, center has come out and in the council and given two options to the state government to decide. GST Council will ultimately decide how it will be done, and both opinion of the center and state will be taken into consideration. And the state have asked that we need 7 more days to discuss it. But the thing is that two options are very important. The shortfall which the estimated on the cess level over the year is 3 lakh crore, and out of this, center government says that we will be able to collect 65,000. So net shortfall is 2,35,000 for the whole year 2020-21. Out of that, center has given two options, that the 97 is because of the regular fall in the shortage, and the balance 1,40,000 is expected to be due to COVID. So we have to bear both center and state, because center is also bearing the shortfall and the state will also have to bear due to COVID. Balance 97,000.
Supriya, does that argument hold? Supriya, so neither the states are getting the money, the center is also not getting the money, the state is also not getting the money. So both sides suffer, Supriya. Does that argument hold for you?
No, it doesn't. And I'll tell you why it doesn't hold for me. I don't think this is a political, pot shot game. I was first want to clarify that. That argument doesn't hold for me simply because when the GST proposition was being hammered out, and I followed it very closely as a journalist, I still remember then Finance Minister, like Mr. Arun Jaitley, put the proposal on the table that they will be guaranteed compensation for 5 years. Now, states gave up their right to collect their revenue to the central government, and now the central government says we cannot compensate you. This is nothing short of betrayal. And if at all there is a deficit, I am saying once again, the avenue for states to raise funds, the avenue for states to borrow, the rate at which they get that money is very high. They will be in a debt trap. The government of India has far more lucrative options to borrow, has far more lucrative options to fund its deficit than the state's government do. Why are we shying away from monetary deficit, which the RBI can do? I mean, there are various options on the table. The states have to be compensated because their avenues are very limited. And if the government can't compensate, then this is nothing short of betrayal. I mean, why on earth then we should all not go back to back? Because there are no revenues. How are states expected to run the show in their respective states, including the
That's
BJP
what I'm trying to
ones?
understand. That's what I'm trying to understand. Gopal Agarwal's argument. That's what I'm trying to understand, that if the BJP's argument is that if there's a shortfall, a commitment was that 14% increase will be there of the money which has to be given to the states. But now if the argument is that there is no money that the center has, then the states are down as far as their collection is concerned. The center is down as far as their collection is concerned. How does one get the money? Dr. Ajay Dua, former bureaucrat with the central government, is there with us as well. Dr. Dua, look at this. Can you explain to me, Dr. Dua, who has the money, sir? The center doesn't have the money, the state doesn't have the money. Then how is transaction going to happen?
I think not an easy question to answer, Bhupen. But let me mention to you two things. The government of India has certainly given a constitutional guarantee that it would be giving the state governments for the taxes which have been subsumed in the GST, a 14% increase, a CAGR for the next 5 years. I think I fail to understand that a particular legal advice, it may be of the Attorney General of the country. Does that advice in any way supersede the discussions in Parliament? Because we have a we have a principle that if there is any ambiguity in an act of Parliament, then the debates on which basis of which the act was enacted, those should be seen. The entire purpose of Mr. Arun Jaitley, and just now his name was taken, he was a man who was trying to bring about, accommodate everybody's point of view, and he found the solution that, all right, we do understand that you are giving away your authority to levy taxes, and like we did in the case of VAT, where we gave you an assurance, in the GST, we would do it. Now that there is a difficulty, I don't think it behoves any government, a state government, even a local government, to move away from a constitution. And here it's a constitutional guarantee which has been given. That's number one. Number two is everybody has to appreciate that both the center and the states are in difficulty. It is difficulty which is a force measure kind of a thing. We would need to here understand each other's position. Last year, the central government gave the state governments 47,000 crores extra because there was a money lying with it which it had not disbursed to the state governments after collecting, and that was available. 147,000 lakh crores was given to the state governments, which was good. Now, I am saying if certain state governments are in a position to borrow funds, and I understand at least 7 or 8 states are going to be able to meet even the conditions imposed by the center for borrowing more from 3 to 5%, because they are fulfilling the other conditions. The central against the central government guarantee, if the states are in a position to raise their money, I would think that for them, that's the way out. It may be a little costlier. I am not denying that fact.
So, Supriya, both sides. So, Supriya,
Yes.
both sides need to be aware. What Dr. Dua is saying, that both sides, both states and center need to be aware, Supriya, that these are difficult times. The center also needs to take a few steps forward, and so do the states. Does that hold for you?
No, absolutely. Look, these are tough times. These are challenging times. I don't think we can put a gun against each other's heads and say either you agree or I will not. I just think, please understand this. There is a shortfall, yes, in GST collection first, largely because of COVID. But the GST collections have been short of target for ever since the GST was launched. And this tells you why this GST was flawed to begin with. This tells you why Indian economy is in shambles. And I think this is the time when the government needs to accept that Indian economy is in trouble and take corrective measures. And I wish this is going to be the warning bell that they need. As far as the states are concerned, states need revenues. Please understand, the only revenue that the state has today, unlike the central government, is revenue that comes from petrol and diesel, and that which comes from alcohol. Those are the only two revenues. COVID has also made those two very discretionary expenditures. So their revenues are very, very in great shortfall. They have not been provided funds by the central government even during COVID. So these are very tough times for the states as well. And some states are at the brink of not being able to pay salaries.
That's the sad part, right, Supriya? I know you're in a car. I'll let you go to your destination. But thanks very much, Supriya. Quick final word from you, Gopalji, before I wrap up this session. States struggling, center struggling, but what is not struggling is a political slugfest. There are election-bound states as well. Nitish Kumar faces election in a couple of months' time from now. Tamil Nadu goes to elections. West Bengal goes to elections. I know in our country it's never an easy task to divorce politics from economy. But do you think this kind of a grave scenario which is confronting us right now, does this not call for a direct personal political intervention of the Prime Minister himself? We saw opposition parties coming together. We saw Sonia Gandhi leading an entire delegation of opposition chief ministers. Why should the Prime Minister not personally intervene at this stage? Show some sympathy, some empathy. Why is it so difficult?
No, but the center is doing whatever is best required because always in economy, Bhupendra ji, these are choices. You have various options and you choose one. What the opposition is doing, that whatever choice, best choice that the government is taking administratively, and considering the difficult time and considering the solutions out of it and various sections which require support from the government, that administrative decision the center government is taking. But the opposition is not understanding this. Now, why we have gone to GST Council? Why we are discussing the options? Why we are saying giving them 7 days time to sort it out? In GST Council, both center and state will sort it out. Why to get into the political side of debate by the Congress? When they have their representative in the
Okay.
GST Council, their chief ministers are there, they can take a call, and finally center and both
Well, that's why I
state will
say
have to fall in line. And
that's why I
yeah,
say the whole problem now, Gopalji, in our country is exactly this: that when it comes to economy, you can never divorce it from political realities. But gentlemen, thank you so much, and thank you, Dr. Dua, as well, for joining us and giving us a clear picture. Where is the money? You know what? I meet a lot of top cabinet ministers and a lot of senior bureaucrats, and the biggest concern which is being expressed today these days in India is that do states have the money to pay off their government employees? Just look at the numbers. The center says I have a shortfall. The states say I have a shortfall. Supriya Shinat saying that if there are only 2 fields through which the states get money, and if on both those fields, whether it's sale of fuel or it's sale of alcohol, if the consumption is down, therefore the money is down, then how are states going to meet up with their expenditures? How are states going to be in a position in which they can pay salaries to their own government employees? Is that not something which we should be bothered about? Or should we be bothered about what is going on in the life of a film star who's no more and a person who was never a film star but has been converted into some kind of a fame glam queen?